Thank you very much, and it's a great opportunity to join into this symposium to have this conversation about the position of the civil society in promoting democracy and also the sustainability. It's quite an interesting conversation, especially due to the fact that even as the network I lead, which is a child rights network, the conversation on civil society and the work that we do, we're going to have a reflection. In the next 2 weeks, we'll also still be having the reflection of the impact of civil society in promoting and protecting children's rights. So coming in to respond to Christine's presentation, I count it an honor, and I thank you very much for this opportunity. I was given specific direction on how to respond, and I will engage in that direction. And one of the first things I was asked to give, as you had, the global perspective, looking at a person from the global south, specifically coming from Uganda in Africa. It's important for, first of all, for us to appreciate where the role of civil society starts in Africa. Everything has a genesis, everything has a beginning. And when you look at how the civil society engagement started in Africa, it can be traced as far back as when the people were fighting for independence against the colonialists, and then also looking into the fighting against apartheid in South Africa and other places where we continue to see the civil society and the different regions coming up to fight and get liberty, above all, also get their rights and their freedoms. So looking at that background, the civil society in Africa has been received at a point of resistance. They look at civil society as a resistance movement, as one that is coming to cause uprising. If you look at what happened in Egypt, if you look at what happened in Sudan, the overthrowing of the government, all that is still seen as the role of civil society mobilizing themselves to change states. So the perception, much of the perception is looking at civil society as a form of resistance. Although in many other countries, the perception is also seen as civil society being one that works with government to ensure that children's rights or the vulnerable group rights or the citizens' rights are protected and are valued at the highest level. So looking at the civil society role, as the speaker before me mentioned, the key roles, I confirm with what she says, the key roles around mobilizing the citizens, mobilizing the vulnerable groups is very key. The civil society looks at how to mobilize all these groups to be able to participate in the different rights that they have. They are able to help them understand what their civil duty is, to go and participate in elections, to go and ensure that they themselves present themselves as candidates to be voted in, to be leaders, and all that. And the civil society plays a very key role in mobilizing the communities and the societies. And looking at that aspect specifically, when you could hear the speaker before me kept on mentioning words like SDGs. Christine kept on mentioning SDGs and other terminologies. When you look at bringing those terminologies to the grassroots people, the civil society has played a key role in helping the grassroots people understand the global language, understand the language that they would not understand in their sense, and help them bring it to their level for them to understand what their role is. So we find that the civil society plays a key role in linking the grassroots to the national, linking the grassroots to the international spaces. So the languages of the SDGs, the poverty, any eradicating poverty, environmental ending of climate change, and all those big terminologies that the grassroots person would not understand. The civil society has played a key role in bringing those terminologies, in translating them, and helping the person at the local level, at the grassroots level, appreciate what their role is and where they play, what key role they play in promoting and protecting the rights, but also in terms of what their civil duty is as citizens in the country. Then I also want to emphasize on what Christine said earlier on about the legal aid. The ability, the civil society, we have seen them play a key role in providing legal aid to persons who have been caught, and I put it in quotes, have been caught on the wrong side of the law because of their commitment in fighting for freedom and all other aspects. We have seen that the civil society has played a key role, especially those who are in the legal fraternity have come in to give free legal aid services to these persons. And hence they're able to be represented in court. They're able to have a fair hearing in court. And we have seen that there has been progress, even in the African states where some cases have been won by the persons who have been caught on the wrong side of the law, if I can just put that in quotes. I also want to remind us that when we look at the Global South, the whole aspect of Ubuntu-ness is very key. And when we talk about Ubuntu-ness, we're talking about I am because we are, and since we are, therefore, I am. This brings a sense of community working together, progressing together, and ensuring that no one is left behind. And the civil society plays a key role in ensuring that there's inclusiveness in all aspects. When we look at the persons living with disabilities, the children, the women, and all the other vulnerable groups that are not, I may have missed mentioning, the civil society plays a key role in ensuring that their participation, their democratic participation is active, and that there is also the ability for us to see that no one is left behind. Then when we look at the second aspect that was asked to give a comment on, which are what are some of the challenges, in my view, at the Global South, with reference to my country, Uganda, and not being specific to Uganda alone, I think I will give 5 key challenges. There are quite a number of challenges, but I'll just present 5 key challenges. The first that I'll present is around the shrinking space that has already been mentioned. The shrinking space is real, and for us, we have seen it become real and more real. And this, I'll present it in two spaces. The first shrinking space is definitely the oppressive laws, the government interventions, the closing of civil society organizations that are offering services to civilians. That is one of the biggest shrinking spaces that we have seen. In Uganda specifically, it is known that the NGO act that we have right now is quite an oppressive law that does not look at the good or positive of what the civil society can do, but rather limits the ability of what the civil society should be able to do, what their mandate is. That is one of the key things that we see with that shrinking space. But then we also can look at it in the sense that people have been arrested, people have been prosecuted, organizations have been shut down, all around the fact of what they're doing for the people in the community, and also what they're doing around the country in representing some of the vulnerable groups that we have mentioned. That presents a bit of the shrinking space, just a drop in the ocean of what the shrinking space is. But then we also have the shrinking space amongst us as civil society, where we have too much competition amongst ourselves, and we are seemingly fighting ourselves. We're working in isolation. We're not coming together to work together for the common good, and we become our own enemies. Civil society against civil society. It's the reality. It's what is happening around us, and that in a way does not benefit the vulnerable people or the key beneficiaries that we are trying to represent and trying to engage. The other aspect or challenge that I present to us is the shifting priorities. We have seen over the last few years that there's been a shifting priorities, even in terms of funding, even in terms of support towards the democracy in the Global South, and towards the civil education in the Global South. These shifting priorities away from the Global South is in a way belittling, or it is in a way refusing is giving us a regression. We are regressing, and we are not able to then see the fruits of what investments have been there for quite some time. So this shifting priorities to, again, the emerging issues, how do we create that balance? Yes, the emerging issues that are coming up, the war in Ukraine and Russia, the war in Israel and Palestine, the war in Iran and all these other places, but there are also the harsh realities of what is happening in terms of the already going on work in the global south. So the shifting priorities has, in a way, reduced the progress that we have had and seen in the work of the civil society in the global south. Then also the aspect of when we talk about poverty, and it was presented earlier on, for me, the challenge around poverty is where people have put politics above humanity. People are taking advantage of the vulnerability of people because people are poor, because people are desperate, they need soap, they need sugar, they need different things. They're taking advantage of this poverty. The international community knows that if they don't give food, then the people starve, therefore they will be oppressed, therefore they will stand up and fight for their rights. Again, at the end, politics over humanity. Where do we draw the line? That's a key question for us to consider and to think through. Where do we draw the line when we start pulling out funding, when we start pulling out different aspects? Where do we draw the line and make sure that we are also not, again, becoming oppressors of what we are trying to fight against? Then corruption, that one is a story that we all know. I don't think that is a new chapter for me to present. Corruption is there, it is real. It is not well covered up like in other countries, but in the global south, corruption is there, and it has become normal. It is normalized. It is okay to become corrupt. And you see, some of these key things limit the person from participating in their right to practice democracy. Corruption in terms of getting a national ID that allows you to vote, corruption in terms of getting a birth certificate that also identifies you as a citizen, and all these other aspects that end up limiting you from enjoying your right as a citizen. That is a harsh reality. Not even mentioning of how the money is not going to the end user and how then that affects the people. Which brings me to the last challenge that I'll throw in there, the challenge around the misuse of the funds that have been brought to us. I know I brought it up in under corruption, but this one here I'll also talk about. Even amongst the civil society, there have been cases. There have been, unfortunately, there have been cases where civil society organizations also have not been truthful and have not been considerate of the funds that they have received. And at the end, the funds have not gone to the end beneficiary. That has also been a challenge. Who do you trust? It brings a lot of mistrust between the funders, the donors, and the people in the civil society. And for us who are serious civil society organizations, it also kills our ability to be good steward. I mean, it kills us our opportunity to get more support in implementing. That is a harsh reality. It is part of the harsh things that we go through in the global south. The real organizations are not given, the fake organizations are given, and the fake organizations don't do the right thing, and then all of us are clustered as the ones who are doing the wrong thing. No. We need to ensure that the right organizations have. Don't ask me how. I don't know how you will ensure, but you need to ensure that the right organizations have the right funding and are able to deliver according to what is being set forth. My last comments around what would be my asks for the Global North will be in 3 points. The first point is, number one, when we are having engagements, when we are having funding coming to the Global South, ensure that the grassroots are a part of the design of whatever you're doing in that country. Ensure that the grassroots, the local people, are involved there. You have had their opinion, you've collected the information. They have actually given what they actually need, rather than sitting in offices, whether it's in Kampala, whether it is in wherever you will be, and deciding where the money should go. Let the money be allocated according to the grassroots. Let me tell you, that will be a more effective giving. It will be a more effective program, and it will be one that is welcomed by the people. Secondly is on the flexibility. When we look at the funding, much of the funding that comes from the global north, it is very restrictive. It is very restrictive. It is not flexible. And at the end of all of that, it ends up, you get into tight situations. And I'll give you an example of the recently COVID situation. Uganda was shut down for 2 years, shut down, total lockdown for 2 years, total lockdown for 2 years. And we did not, and if the funding was for you to go to the field where you couldn't go to the field, then it becomes meaningless. The money becomes useless. It's not then going to be effective. So flexibility with the emerging issues. When you're looking at advocacy is evolving. We need to have flexibility. So as you plan for the money, I know you have to be strict, you have to be everything, but where's the point of flexibility that you can come in? And the final, the final point that I'll share is think around the decisions when you're deciding to cut funding to the Global South. Think through everything. At the end, who is going to suffer? In Africa, we have a saying, and the saying is this, that when the elephants are fighting, it is the grass that suffers. What does that mean? That when the big elephants, when the big people are fighting, it is the local people, the people who are down there at the grassroots, who are being stepped on. The grass, you know, when the elephants are fighting, they're stumbling on the grass, and the grass is the one that will wither away. So when the big elephants are fighting, when the presidents, when the heads of states are fighting with Germany, with France on all those things, at the end, when you cut that aid, it is not the presidents who are going to suffer. It is the local person in the grassroots level who is going to suffer. And I'm going to be very truthful and open that when you decide to cut funding because of certain issues here and there, and at the end, the grassroots people are the ones who are benefiting from that funding, the people who you're trying to cut the funding from are not going to suffer because they're seated in well-placed offices. They are not going to feel the impact. It is the ones who are the grassroots, where the money was meant to go, that are going to suffer. So as you plan to cut that money, as you plan to cut those aids, whatever you're doing, think through and make sure that at the end, the beneficiary is not the one suffering.